Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, or whatever the time of the day or night that you are tuning into First Report 36.0, and this is Jenny Marcroft.
And this is Clayton Mitchell.
And we haven't got Fletcher this week because he's actually in Scotland with his two daughters, and both of them who have actually made the worlds in bagpiping.
Wow,
So,
great.
yeah,
Awesome.
Fantastic. I want to see some pictures. We haven't seen any as yet. Jenny, you sat in today in Select Committee in the Finance and Expenditure for Fletcher. You had Adrian Oren talking about the official cash rate. What's the update on that?
Well, it was interesting for me to sit in a space where all the bean counters were in the room because, that's normally where Fletcher sits, and he's got a great, great understanding of that whole financial sector. But having Adrian Orr come in and explain the reasoning behind that 50 basis point slash to the OCR was really interesting. He made a couple of comments, I think, which will really resonate with the rural community in particular. One of the things he said is the banks have been scaring the people, in particular the rural sector. So that was a comment that there were a lot of heads nodding in the room, and also too he said that it's time for us to get spending. He had my attention at that.
Stimulate the economy?
Absolutely, and that's what we need to do. We need to go out
Stimulate
and,
the gifted spenders.
But it's not just about spending willy-nilly. It's not just consumer spending. It's businesses having more confidence. It's about saying where can we invest and how can we keep growing our economy.
Now, something that comes up on a regular basis, and certainly something that's been happening for a long time, is the underspending in health. This government's made a very, very clear statement and put funding into mental health particularly, but health in general. What's the update in the health sector? And you've got some New Zealand First policy that we've got coming into 2020.
Well, absolutely. $1.7 billion has been put into health capital spending, so that's out of budget 2019. $1.9 billion into mental health package funding. Now, we know that this is going to affect not just those at the pointy end of mental health, but also those suffering mild to medium effects of mental health illness. They will be taken care of through this package. So this is revolutionary. It's going to change people's lives. So our focus going into 2020, we've got an election next year, but before that,
it's gone quick, isn't it?
We've got our convention coming up in October, and we're going
Where's that going to be?
Oh, it's in Christchurch. Yay, looking forward to that.
Make sure you come along.
And what we want to do is we want to take some good policy ideas to convention to have to go into 2020. So cancer's a really big one, so we're having a little think around that. Rare disorders, rare diseases, our policy is $25 million to be put and ring fence for those rare disorders. So we'll certainly be coming up with some great ideas.
And it's a huge issue, isn't it? I mean, in the time that you've been in government and Parliament, we've seen a lot of people walk on the steps of Parliament protesting to say that we're not funding enough for some of these rare disorders. $25 million would certainly go a long way to help some of those people that have got rare cancers that need some treatment, some specialty drugs, etc.
Absolutely, but the other thing is that we're looking at as a government currently at the moment, and we'll have a greater steer on this, is the ministry is looking at what can we do in terms of early access to medicines. So what we want to do is make sure politicians stay out of the decision making about which drugs should be funded and let the clinical scientists, medical specialists make those decisions. But what we need to do is have people be able to access them a whole lot earlier than what is currently available.
Great. Yeah, no, that's very, very important.
And you've been doing a little bit of work on our asset sales. You've written something
Well,
about that?
we've certainly, New Zealand First has always had a very strong policy. In fact, the reason why we've got New Zealand First in the first place was the fact that the National Party back in 1993 was selling off the Wellington Airport, that New Zealand First was founded on that principle that we do not sell state assets. State assets are there for the benefit of New Zealanders, for all New Zealanders. The moment we start selling off our state assets is the moment that the bottom line profits of these organisations and the shareholders of them become their priority as opposed to the needs of the people. And recently, over the last certainly 11 years, 9 years of the previous government, and even further back than that, we've seen some state asset sales being sold off. Last week in the House, Jonathan Young was asking a question about why we're paying so much for power companies. Well, hello.com, that's exactly what happens when you start selling off these power companies. They are looking at putting up the prices to create better margins for their shareholders. And it's something that New Zealand First is tidying up. It's something that we're very aware of, but it's not just the power companies, it's the insurance companies. State Insurance was sold off, Fletcher's was sold off, Telecom was sold off, a plethora of New Zealand Inc. All of our banks have been sold off, and we know we're paying through the teeth for services that the banks are providing. So we've got a lot of work to do to tidy up that field. Look, just before we finish off, I'm very conscious of the time. We've had a big announcement this week that it was tabled, the bill around abortions. New Zealand First has come out to say that this is an issue that we should be taking to the people. We have at the next election got a number of issues. What's the general feeling out there with people in relation to New Zealand First policy around these binding referendums, particularly on these conscience-based issues?
Well, we basically feel that the responsibility for these conscience issues should rest with the people, not 120 temporarily empowered politicians, which is the likes of you and I, Clayton. So this for us is a conscience issue where we say it needs to go to the people, therefore a referendum, and so we'll be voting along those lines this afternoon. Right. It's going to be a very interesting debate in the House.
And it's a position that we've held for a long time. I mean, we're on record for saying anybody that says that it's just come out of the blue needs to go back and check what we've been saying for a long time. But Tracy Martin has been saying it, Winston's been saying it, in fact all of us have been saying it. So anyway, just a bit of an update. Thanks for tuning in this week's First Report. We'll look forward to Fletcher being back the week next, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.